Money doesn't just come from one place. It drips, trickles, flows, and floods into our lives in different ways. Welcome to Drip Trickle Flow Flood, a podcast that explores the power of multiple income streams. We've got merch. That's right. Drip Trickle Flow Flood t-shirts are officially here, and they're as comfy as they are conversation starting. Grab yours at the link in our show notes. All right. Hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Our audience is going to hear me a little clogged up because I'm dealing with allergies. So
I I feel a little bad for all the allergy sufferers out there because we are in that season here in the Pacific Northwest, but it also means it's sunny and warm out, and
that's right.
it's been an awesome few days, and good day to be a track coach, go out, hang out with the kids in the sun today, so that'll be great.
Yes, I agree. I love being outside, even with allergies. I just sneeze through it. My husband and I have we're just calling it violently sneezing. There's violent sneezing attacks, but then the rest of the time is good and we can just enjoy it. Well, we have an interesting topic today, digging a little bit more into the drip trickle flow flood framework, which is something that we're asked quite often by our listeners and our audience. So this concept is around fast money funding slow dreams. So for anybody out there who has a dream of starting a business or maybe becoming a writer, a screenwriter, writing a book, anything that has a longer runway to make happen, right? It's not going to be an overnight thing. But there's always that middle space where you are working toward that dream. And at the same time, you need to fund your life or you need money coming in the door. And that can be a tricky space because oftentimes we want to pour all of our energy into whatever that dream is. But we also want to make sure that we are, bringing in income to support our lifestyles. And not just that, it's also smart to diversify your income, which we've talked about in many different episodes on this podcast, so that you aren't reliant on just what your dream is, right? You have other types of income coming in. So this will be a great episode for creative careers, but it will also be a great episode for anyone who has a dream and is starting that. So what do we think, Tony?
I love this. I think it's pursuing a dream is an admirable thing. And I am a huge proponent of doing that. But this is kind of, and I had never thought of it this way, the fast money funds slow dreams. But it's definitely the foundation, drip, trickle, flow, flood. The way I started thinking about money is kind of the foundation of this sort of thing of, whether it's funding a business, uh, you know, writing the great American novel, or being able to have more time with your kids, whatever the dream is, getting the money in that allows you to live your life, to me, gives you the mental space to then pursue that dream. If you don't have that mental space, you're so stressed out that it's hard to do it. And you can then, end up staring at a blank sheet of paper for months because you're so stressed out that you got to write this thing. And yeah, maybe that means you're doing work that you don't maybe love. Hopefully you at least enjoy it, or maybe it's not your dream. But yeah, maybe you're working construction, which I did a lot of, or you're serving coffee or whatever it is, getting that tip money, all the different things, but getting that income in so that you can pursue your dream outside of those hours and maybe fund other pieces of your life that can start creating drips and trickles to help fund that dream as well.
Yes. And I know I get this question a lot, even outside of this podcast, which is people having lots of ideas, but not knowing what to focus on and feeling too scattered. So there's the idea of, I need to bring in money. Whatever my dream is, I'm just going to use an example. My dream is to sell a television show. Okay. And that's going to be a long, long runway. So until that happens, what is the thing I should focus on? So that's a question that I'll get a lot. And so one place I like to start, because of course I don't have the answer for everybody, but a place to start, anybody listening can start, is to look at your lowest hanging fruit. And I also like to think about it in two parts. So it's your lowest hanging fruit meets adjacencies. So, what are some adjacencies to your dream that won't take away too much energy from pursuing that, but will at least have some transferable skills that you can use in both areas? So, for example, some folks who are pursuing a writing career, maybe they decide that they want their lowest hanging fruit to be that they're still going to write, but they're going to write for brands, companies, small businesses, right? Copywriting. That might not be what they want to do long term, but it's still writing, right? You're polishing up those writing skills. You're learning how to work with clients and take critical notes and feedback, which is basically all you're going to do as a screenwriter. So it's a great adjacency. Um, and you're bringing in money, right, while you are pursuing that dream. Also, another way to think about it is because some people don't like to do the same thing. It's like, I want to pursue my dream, but I don't want to yank my creative energy out of that by like then also writing for brands. So maybe they decide they want to pour coffee. Okay. So then it's like, well, what are the adjacencies there? Well, there's still adjacencies because you're giving yourself open mental space where you're focused on like repetitive tasks, like making lattes, for example, where that could allow ideas to float in. It's like your best ideas come in the shower type of deal. Also, you're getting skills working with the public, right? Lots of communicating, which will bode really well for networking. Also, you're probably getting a lot of great story ideas from all the customers that walk in your door. So you can get creative with how you think about it too. It doesn't have to be so linear. But
I,
that's my initial advice to anyone.
I like this game. So think about maybe someone that wants to restore and flip vehicles, right? They want to get classic cars, fix them up. So maybe they go get a job being a mechanic,
Yep.
probably pays a good hourly wage. They're going to be learning all those skills, practicing all the skills, potentially meeting people that would buy the cars they're fixing up. Um, I think someone that wants to get into real estate, right? So maybe you want to become a real estate investor. So maybe you go become a realtor. Maybe
Mhm.
you get into construction so you understand the houses. I think that's a cool way to think about it, where maybe you're not doing what you envision long term, but you
Mhm.
see the path to where you're going and you're working in a world. Or, like you said, you're doing something else that you enjoy. We've talked about this on other episodes where you and I both write. I can write for a very short period of time before I have to go do something where you can hunker down and write. That's why I
Yeah.
call, myself a pretend writer and you a real writer because you can actually do it. And so I think that a lot of this comes back to knowing yourself and saying, okay, what can I do to help reach my dreams? And what am I willing to do to help reach my dreams? So, are you willing to work two jobs? Are you willing to, live way below your means so that you're saving and investing and now you're getting that fast money. And so maybe that fast money is working a job that pays well that you don't love. Or maybe that means you're working two jobs and you're putting in a lot of hours, but you're able to save a lot of money. And now you take that money, maybe you invest it, maybe it's in a high yield savings account and you're creating these drips and then eventually trickles. And maybe you can start turning those investments into flows that allow you to now quit one of those jobs. And now you can start pouring that time into one of your dreams. I I know there are a lot of people that just pursue their dreams and they say, this is what I'm doing. I'm going all out. And if I've got to be a starving artist, I have to be a starving artist. I never wanted to be a starving artist. I like eating. I like going on vacation. I like doing all those things. And I have a family, we have a kid and pets and all the things. And Lindsay and I have to support that as well. So I have always felt like to pursue these extra things, I needed to do what I needed to do to earn the money. And that extra piece is the extra piece. And yeah, does it take extra work? Yeah, but if you really love it, you're going to find the time. Maybe you won't be as caught up on Netflix. Maybe you won't know the score of the baseball game or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of hours in the day outside of the 8 hours you're at a job.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. What are you willing to sacrifice to, as far as like, are you going to work 2 jobs? Or you also mentioned the like budgeting or cutting back in certain areas. And I think that's sort of an underappreciated area sometimes is like where can you scale back? Like, is that possible? And I'm not talking about scaling back where you like can't eat. Not like that. But often we do load up expenses that we don't really need, right? If you're really thinking about what's more meaningful to you. Is it this is sort of a cheap example, but I'll use it anyway. Do you need those 10 subscriptions to Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, blah, 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 right? The list goes on now because there's 8 million of them. Um, or would you rather save that, have one subscription and then those other 9, like, is there a better way, better usage for that money that you could invest towards whatever this dream is that you have? So it's kind of thinking around in your life. And then on a larger platform, that could mean for some people maybe changing where they live. Like maybe we don't live so far above our means, or we move into a smaller house, or we move to a cheaper city. There's all sorts of things. So it just depends on what you want to do. And or, if you're not going to scale back, then it is, yeah, where is that income going to come from? There's a whole I don't necessarily advocate this, but there is a whole Reddit forum called Overwork. Have you seen this?
Uh-uh.
So it's this forum where people have more than one full-time job and they call them like J1, J2, J3. Truly, I don't know. And it's it's probably more than a little sketchy because I guess technically you're not supposed to do that. So like you don't want your employer to find out. However, I mean, my opinion on it is if you're getting all of your work done and you're excelling and doing a good job, then what does it really matter how many hours it takes for you to like do your work? But that's just me. I guess for some employers, they certainly don't feel that way. So it's a bit frowned upon, I would say. But it's just very interesting because that is what that entire group exists for, is like all of those people have sort of a dream or a lifestyle goal, which could be, I want more freedom. I want to retire by a certain age. Or maybe I want to move somewhere. I want to start a business. I want to, whatever their dream is. And so they're willing to, for like a 5-year period or something, work these intense schedules, in order to make that happen. And again, that's like the sacrifice that they choose. So
Yeah, and I can relate to that. And specifically my mid to late 20s, Lindsay and we were cranking. We had a lot of jobs, a lot of businesses, all sorts of things, but it was with the end goal in mind of creating a life of flexibility where we could pursue things that we want to pursue. Uh,
yeah.
I Yeah, I don't know. I guess that maybe that the overwork or the extra work or whatever, that maybe that's a whole nother episode. That's a really interesting concept. I've heard about a little bit, where people have like multiple online jobs going at the same
Yes.
time. And yeah.
Right. Obviously, it would have to be remote work.
Yeah,
And
actually,
it
okay.
kind of seems to be centered on like software engineers, maybe because it's like that's more conducive to like you can work, you don't have to be tethered to like a schedule, but I don't know.
Let's I'm gonna put this out there. I want our first, and if you want to be anonymous, that'd be great to be our first anonymous guest. You can come on and tell us about all the jobs you're doing and how how you're making it happen. We promise not to tell any of your employers. Uh,
We'll have to use like a one of those voice distortions.
yeah, that would be awesome. It'd be like one of those mafia shows. So we're working on the Drip Trickle Flow Flood book, and I've been working on some stuff with drip and trickle lately. And I think this is a good episode to bring up just the not discounting the value of those drips and trickles and the power of compounding interest and the value of time in that growth. So I know everybody says a cup of coffee, saving that cup of coffee doesn't do you any good. It's not worth it. And cutting one $10 subscription, maybe that doesn't do it. Or maybe if you find an apartment to live in that's $50 less a month, well, is that really worth it? But when you add all of those things together and you start saving or investing those every single month, and that investment starts compounding, it really does grow. And I just read this article about Warren Buffett that he made, I can't even remember the age, but I think it was something like after 60 or something is where he made almost all of his money. And it
Yeah.
was because he had it growing in the background. And his book is called The Snowball, his biography. And it really is that starting small and it's picking up steam and picking up snow as it's rolling down the hill. And eventually every rotation is picking up more and more and growing exponentially. And just that value of time and what time does to compounding interest is so valuable that those little pieces do matter. And as powerful as that compounding interest on one side is, that death by a thousand cuts with all these little bills are holding you back as much on the other side. So, yes, maybe you're going to say, all right, I'm going to, get the fast money to build the slow. It's hard for me to pull that together. Fast money, fun, slow dreams. Maybe that's the mission. But at the same time, don't be sabotaging yourself while you're working really hard, but then you're spending it all. And,
Mhm.
as you're making that fast money, let that money work for you in the background.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I like that fast money too doesn't have to be, think we often think of fast money as like a windfall of income, like, right? It's where can I make like the biggest explosion of money? And that's just that leads us down sketchy paths.
Yeah, we're
So
not saying go be a drug dealer.
no, or no, definitely not. Or like, some other sketchy path. These like get rich quick schemes, of course, that are everywhere. That is definitely not what we're talking about. Fast money doesn't have to be equated to a certain amount. It like Tony said, it can be even a small amount that compounds over time, but it's just coming in quickly. So maybe that is like a part-time job somewhere. I know when I was like in my early 20s, I used to write, oh my gosh, this was so long ago, but I used to write these like blog posts for some local magazine or something in Philly or blog. I don't really remember even the name of it, but I do remember I was getting paid like 30 or 40 bucks per post. It was something like that, like very low, where I think a lot of people would look at that and say, "Oh, who cares? Like, why even bother?" That's like nothing. However, and they didn't take me too long to write either. However, it was the fact that like it felt like a container to me where it's like, okay, I'm gonna write 15 of these a month. That's gonna bring in X dollars. And then I'm gonna use at the time I had some debt. So I used that to pay down my debt. And then after that, it started being able to be something that I could invest and have it work for me. So again, that wasn't a big amount of money, but it really, really worked for me. And I completely cleared my debt off of just that. That's it.
Yeah,
Making
well,
those 30 little dollar blog posts, it worked.
I mean, that's brilliant. And if you can say, all right, this is my job. This is what I'm living off of. And maybe there's some savings component out of that, or maybe everything you're making, you're spending. If you go get that and you can actually be saying, okay, I'm going to save or invest or pay down debt with this other money, that's impactful. Have I told you about my supervising exchange student job I had?
No.
So this was also, yeah, I must have been in my 20s. And I don't even know where I saw this job posting or how I came across it, but you got paid in two ways. One was like finding host families and pairing up the exchange students. And it was through this organization. So they had the exchange students. You had to go find the families and pair them up. And so you got paid when you made that connection. And then you got paid monthly for supervising these kids. Well,
Mm.
at the time, I was still on the track of I thought I was going to be a teacher. And I was like, well, that's really good experience. But I had, was I still on that track? I don't even know. Hard to say. Anyways, I like working with youth. And so I, I said, well, I don't really want to like find these families and do this pairing. And I was talking to the person I had applied for the job and I got the job and I go, well, really all I want to do is supervise the exchange students. And she says, well, I actually have somebody that they don't want to supervise the exchange students. They just want to pair up the families, get their check and move on with their life. And so all I did was supervise them. I didn't pair up the families. And so I had two, and I don't know, I think I made $100 a month. Maybe it was $100 per, but I can't remember now. And, it's pretty easy. I met them. I think we met in person every other month and I talked to them on the phone once a month, kind of a thing. And so maybe
Mhm.
it was only $50. So I can't, but, uh, it was a very smooth, easy job until, one of the exchange students and one of her host brothers or however you would call it, started hooking up in the house.
Oh,
And it was
oh god.
uh, which was obviously not okay. Pretty con, and she was from a fairly liberal country, and the family here goes. They called him up and they go, you know, what are we gonna do? And I was probably supposed to like send her home, but I didn't. I didn't
Mhm.
call the main office. I didn't tell them this story, and I go, okay, we got to be more responsible. And her parents didn't seem to care at all. It's like, well, as long as she's being safe, we don't care. And anyways, the host family was a little more due diligent about making sure they stayed in their separate bedrooms.
Oh my gosh.
And, and so, anyways, um, all that to be said, it was a great little side hustle. I only did
Despite
it
the
for that one
trauma.
school year, but it was a story I'll never forget. The other one, got in zero trouble. She was very well behaved.
Okay.
Oh, that was good.
Ah,
But yeah. So anyways, I think finding those little things,
yeah.
and again, depending on where you are at in your life, if you're in your 20s or even your 30s, and I mean really forever, maybe you're at the stage of life where you're ready to quit your job and you've got money set aside, but you want to supplement whatever in savings you have or your retirement or whatever. Go find that little thing you can do that can generate a little bit more money and is still fun and create that
Mhm.
trickle of money that can increase the drip that can eventually turn into a trickle. And as you add all of this stuff together, you can turn that into flows. Um, or it can fund your dream. Maybe your dream turns into a flood. Maybe
Yeah.
you've got the next Oscar winning film sitting in your, script sitting in your desk or whatever it is. So I really like this. I have a hard time saying fast money dreams for some reason, but
The big bit of a tongue twister.
yeah,
I
it's a
I
little
mean,
bit of a tongue twister, but I like it a lot.
fast money, fun, slow dreams.
We're gonna,
Well,
yeah, I think we gotta work that line into the book.
well, I hope that this was helpful for everybody today. And I agree that, your dream could be a big windfall of cash, of course, but even if it's not, Let's hope it is, but even if it's not, you've still built your drip, trickle, flow, flood as you're building your dream. So no matter what, you're setting yourself up for success. So if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review on your favorite podcast platform so that more people can find our podcast and get this information. The more conversations that we're having about money and finance, the better. And with that said, we'll see you next time on Drip Trickle Flow Flood. Thanks, everybody.